Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being with us here today on Children's Day at the Capitol. We are so glad to have everyone who joined us downstairs. Before I go any further, I want to thank our lightsaber sponsors. So all of the legislators got a lightsaber today so that they could remember to be a force for children, which is our theme for today. So the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children, Children and Families Action Network, there they are, the Louisiana State PTA, Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Acadiana, and Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Southwest Louisiana. They sponsored our lightsabers today, so we just want to thank them and give them a big round of applause. Today, I am so happy that we have some great inspirational words from a wonderful, wonderful leader here in the state of Louisiana. He has truly been a servant leader for the children in the state of Louisiana, and I get goosebumps every time he speaks. And so today, Dr. ADREN Wilson, if you'll come up and join us. I would like to present you with our lightsaber because you have truly been a force for children in this state, and we cannot thank you enough. Wow. Thank you so much.
There's this guy named Yoda. I don't know if many of you are familiar with him. Tiny guy. But it's very quotable, and there are two quotes that I wanted to share by Yoda. The first is, do or do not, there is no try, right? And that emphasizes the importance of committing to action in order to succeed. And then there's another lovely quote that I think is so fitting for today. Truly wonderful is the mind of the child is, right? And so I'm just coming to say thank you. Thank you on behalf of Governor John Bel Edwards. You all are really important partners in our state, and clearly important partners for our children and our families. When I think of Star Wars, right, there's no vehicle that is as clear and clean as this notion of good versus evil. Good versus evil. I would not stand up here and say to you in any kind of sincere way that I see people that sometimes that maybe wouldn't embrace the policies that we want to put forth or the things that we believe we should do for children as evil. I think that's foolishness, and that's not a part of this design. The design is to have robust public policy discussion, and hopefully we land in a place that is good for everyone. So I wouldn't do that. But what I will do is figure out and say to you, how do we grow this notion of good? Good evidence-based policy, good folk that are in your seats, good folk that are in the seats in the House and the Senate. How do we grow good? How do we grow good? And I just have a couple observations that I will make. One, I think you all have done this really well over the years, Susan, and all of you. Bringing in non-traditional players. Over the years, I've seen you at the very grassroots level bring in business leaders, right, to talk about the impact of early ed. So I say keep doing that. I think that's important. There's another group of folk that is so important, and I think it's time that you figure out a way to start building capacity and invite them into the room on behalf of our children. They care about our children. They just don't maybe know how to translate that care into a public policy agenda that is truly good, right? Growing more good for our children. And that is our faith community. I interact with thousands and thousands of faith leaders across our state, small groups, large groups, and they always say to me, every single one, from the Black Baptist to the white Catholic to the conservative Southern Baptist, white, they all say to me, when they're showing me around their church or showing me around their community, the first group, the very first group, they always mention and they always lift up is the children of their church, the children of their synagogue, the children surrounding their institutions. And it always strikes me, right, when I'm in conversation with these prominent faith leaders, by the way, it's important to note, have ties into every single elected official in our state. When I'm having these conversations and they are telling me about all the amazing, beautiful things they're doing on behalf of children, right? And the political spectrum from the left to the right, I often wonder, wow, what an opportunity this is. And sometimes I take it, sometimes time is limited and I can't take it. But this notion of how do we enroll them in this movement? We need more women. We need more women here. And I know there are constructs out there that are trying to recruit, that are trying to develop the pipelines. I just have to tell you, over my years in doing this work, you will not find more dedicated, more talented, more inspiring women than the women that are in this room and the women that are in the children's movement in Louisiana. And let me just tell you, you don't need this African-American male in the governor's office to give you permission or say, please do it. The agency already exists. I think we have failed in building the capacity, right?
Sometimes you'll be like, whoa.
Yeah, no. I think we failed at building the capacity, and so I think it's a challenge for all of us to figure out what that capacity looks like and how we can have sincere conversations with women and meet them where they are. And not invite them into the room, not open the door, have them make the decision that they want to come into the room and open the door themselves, right? And so I'll just end by saying again, thank you. And I think Yoda is a pretty good North Star for all of us.
Thank you. I just want to highlight a couple of our funding priorities today, and I know that Dr. Wilson recognized Dr. Charlie ZEANAH, who's here with Tulane. This has been something we've been talking about in policy for many years, but this year we're really hoping we're going to make it happen. $10 million to start infant and early childhood mental health infrastructure in the state of Louisiana. And $10 million in the scheme of a lot of the funds that we're getting from the federal government right now in response to COVID is really not a lot of money, but it can really start a lot of work in this area. So I just want to recognize Dr. ZEANAH for his work and the Early Childhood Policy Leadership Institute, which many of us have gone through, as really planting the seeds, and this being the culmination of all that work. So Dr. ZEANAH, it's my pledge, I will get this money this year to start this infant early childhood mental health infrastructure. We're also looking at about $35 million that DCFS needs to do the implementation of Families First Prevention Services Act. And a lot of you guys are aware of the change in the way we do child welfare here in the state of Louisiana. The feds have passed this new legislation. It's called the Family First Prevention Services Act, and it's shifting our focus away from putting kids into foster homes and more toward focusing on prevention services and keeping families together. So everyone in this room, and I'm so glad to see so many child-serving organizations here, has so much to contribute to that process of helping families and supporting families, even the library, who I'm so glad to have our folks from the East Baton Rouge Parish Library here, having those resources for parents where they can go and read books with their children and things like that is going to help keep our families together. Of course, we are still trying to get $86 million for early care and education. I know a lot of folks are thinking, well, but didn't early care and education just get a lot of funds from the federal government? They did, but that's what stopped the bleeding. That was stopping the bleeding from the COVID-19 crisis. We need $86 million to stabilize the entire system and provide quality childcare, not just childcare, quality childcare for the families in Louisiana that desperately need it. And then we're looking at an additional $1 million to support CASA, FENS, the Louisiana Parent Education Network, and to reboot Prevent Child Abuse Louisiana. Prevent Child Abuse in Louisiana closed its doors here in 2018. We have not had that organization since then. And so we're looking at putting some state funds within the Louisiana Children's Trust Fund to get that organization back up and running, so again, that they can play that part in that Families First prevention services work as well. So these are our funding asks, because this is a fiscal session. And then, of course, we are working on other pieces of legislation throughout the session. So I want to thank everyone here for all of your work and all of your efforts in being here today at our Children's Day at the Capitol. Thank you. Today is Children's Day at the Capitol. The partnership unites voices and data to do the best policy for children. So we are a connection of child-serving organizations throughout Louisiana that advocates for policy on behalf of children.
What is the condition of Louisiana's children now?
Unfortunately, our children are not doing as well as they should. We continue to perform at the bottom, as we have for about the last 30 years of the ABNEY KC Kids Count survey. We usually are about 48th or 49th in that survey. And we have a lot of children in poverty. Right now in Louisiana, 1 in 4 children experiences lack of access to food. So 1 in 4 children is currently going hungry here in Louisiana.
What's your message to the legislature? What needs to happen?
Today we're asking them to be a force for children. And by that we need funding for children's programs. We need funding and $35 million for DCFS to implement the Families First Prevention Services Act. We need $10 million for infant and early childhood mental health. We need about $1 million for CASA, FENS, and the Louisiana Parent Education Network. And then we're looking at about $2 million for a record-keeping system for school-based health records. So those initiatives will help improve the lives of children. And right now we know that we can use some of the federal restoration money to pay for some of these programs.
How critical are those?
Incredibly critical. Right now in Louisiana, there is a complete areas of the state where you can't find a social worker, let alone a psychiatrist. So the $10 million for infant and early childhood mental health will help build a mental health infrastructure for children. And that includes women who are pregnant and postpartum, when their young children are developing, encouraging them to have better mental health and help them better take care of their children.
We know that we have 173,000 children that are at risk birth to 4 in Louisiana, and we only serve about between 16 and 20,000 children annually. And so we know we have a far way to go to make sure that we're serving our children that we need to.
What type of services are you looking for?
We're really looking for increased investment in child care and early care and education to make sure that children have access to quality early care and education so their families can get back to school and go to work.
What are you looking for out of this session of the legislature?
What we're looking for out of the legislative session 2021 is increased investment, state investment in early care and education by ways of general appropriation, but also we know that sports betting, all the rules are being made right now to figure out how they're going to be taxed. And so we're just really looking for some of that revenue to be able to go into the Early Childhood Incentive Fund. It's critically important because we have locals that are making investments like New Orleans with $3 million, Jefferson Parish making some parish investments, Caddo Parish and Shreveport making local investments as well. And so this incentive fund, what it allows locals to do is when they come up with let's say $2, if there's money in that incentive fund, they could get a dollar for dollar match. And so it really incentivizes good government. It's local and state government working together to make sure that we increase access to early care and education.
How important is that for the success of children?
It's critically important because we know when children have access to early care and education that they can enter into kindergarten ready to learn, and then they can hopefully read on grade level by the 3rd grade. And so it's really building up what we need for little people to be able to do and making sure they have a strong start.
I'm hoping that the legislature will recognize the need to support getting young children off to an early start And there's a strategic plan advocating for $10 million in early childhood mental health infrastructure. This would provide medical money to the 3 medical schools in the state to begin to build a workforce to provide for the needs of families of very young children. I'm very excited about that, and I hope it will be supported.
Why is early childhood important?
Early childhood is important because that's the period of rapid brain development, and the experiences that young children have in the earliest years are most likely to have long-term effects on their development. So if we can get children off to a good start, they'll be much better off down the road.
Where does Louisiana rank compared to city or states throughout the South and nationwide in this area of early childhood education?
Unfortunately, Louisiana ranks about 49th in most of the early childhood indicators, and that's something we'd really like to see change. And the way to do that is to provide supports for families, including mental health services for families, which is something we had a few years ago and it went away, and we're hoping to bring that back.
What kind of value does that have?
It's got tremendous value because building social skills in young children and relieving them of the burdens of early adversity are some of the best predictors of their long-term outcomes.
I represent Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Baton Rouge, and the children that we serve are through domestic adoption, international adoption of families living in our housing programs, and also our early childhood education program, home instruction for the parents of preschool youngsters. And that is for the parents of children ages 0 to 5. It's a home visiting, evidence-based program.
What are the needs of those children and families?
The needs of the children are support from the state and the legislature to put the children first because the children are our future. The needs include education and parent engagement, parenting, and the support from the case management to help the families who are in need of resources that are important for children to grow and learn and thrive in our community.
What would you like to see happen in this session of the legislature to help those children and families?
I would like to see the legislators put the children first and to make sure that the families are prepared to help their children, educate their children, and parent their children in the best way possible. We know that parents want to be good parents, and we have to help them and give them tools, give everyone tools to be the best parent possible.
We serve over 500 early childhood learning centers throughout the state. I'm with Volunteers of America Greater Baton Rouge, but we serve 24 parishes in Lake Charles, Acadiana, and the Greater Baton Rouge area.
Tell us about the children you serve and their needs.
Well, we serve children birth to age 5, so that's the children getting these kids ready for kindergarten, really ready to learn and ready to succeed. And the needs that they have is that we're just so supportive of funding to early childhood education to provide additional CCAP seats in the state so that children can come to school, and their parents can get back to work. We are looking at, we're interested in funding to help them improve the quality of education and just really help the kids learn and grow and prepare for kindergarten.
What would you like to see out of this session of the legislature?
Out of this session, I know there's several bills that are on the table, but we're really looking. There's some funding around an additional $84 million that they're looking for additional CCAP seats, and as well as just funding towards early ed, just overall for now, and just really seeing the state get around that in the future.
What kind of a difference would that make to Louisiana's children?
A huge difference. They say that the early side, 90% of a child's brain develops before they're 5 years old. A lot of people don't know that, but it's so important to get them on the early side and just that's basically like building the foundation of your house beforehand. The high school dropout rates go down, improved behavioral in school. It helps our community in the long run with lower welfare costs. It's a win-win for everybody.
The Louisiana PTA's Parent and Teacher Association, our #1 goal is advocacy for the children and students, obviously. I am here with the Louisiana Partnershp for Family and Children because they're offering resources, education and knowledge to give to organizations to bring back, whether it's in the city or the town, so that we can be able to reach our entire state. The resources and opportunities that are available, I wouldn't have known about unless the Children's Day at the Capitol actually existed. We are now partnering with them, and since we have become a partner, I have been able to get connections for mentoring, psychiatric help for the kids, funding opportunities from national, and those are the kind of things we want to bring in to the smaller towns and parishes all over the state here in Louisiana. So,
what is your message to legislators about the needs of children and parents?
More so is to get more involved. If you could come and just hear the voices. We are speaking for our kids. It starts with the children, and they're not here to basically be able to speak for themselves. So having an advocate, that's what we are. So if they would like to know and they have a heart or desire to want to know how to help, come seek the information. Come and find out what we're about. Come and find out what the children's advocacy programs are about. There's so many here, and when you have a heart and desire to want to get involved, I promise you, you will get the resources and understanding that we're trying to bring back to these children.
Today we're here to fulfill our mission and our vision that all youth achieve their full potential. And as a Louisiana Children's Partner and Children's Trust Fund partner, we're here to provide information and resources to our legislators and community of who we are and what we do with our mentoring.
What is the needs of those that are involved in your program? What message do you have for legislators?
So our youth need to have positive role models, positive connections, mentoring with trauma-informed care. The trauma that our youth have faced in 2020 alone, since March of 2020, economic challenges, educational challenges, and in our neck of the woods in Louisiana, Lake Charles, double hurricane last fall, and our youth need strong role models in adult mentors in our community. But what we need from our legislators is to support us in funding, support us in additional legislative advocacy efforts, just put our youth first. And I know our legislators do, and we have really good legislators in the House and Senate in Louisiana. It's just when we ask for help, please step up and help us when we ask for help.
I work for the East Baton Rouge Parish Library in a new department called Special Literacy Projects, because we know that there is a literacy problem in Baton Rouge. It's well documented, and we want to make sure that we can get books to the kids in their hands. A lot of growing up, a lot of people had at least King James Bible and a phone book in their homes. Now they don't have those. There's just the phone, the iPhone, and they're not getting the reading that they need then. The brain is different when you learn to read from a book as to learn to read from something electronic. You want both, of course, but you need to get the book first and then go into the iPhones and things and all with it. So we're trying to get books in the kids' hands.
What will it take to accomplish that?
Put books in their homes. It's not enough just going to the library, because many of them come and just get on the computers. We want to give them books also to go home with them, that the books live with them.
What are you asking out of the session of the legislature?
Just when things come across on literacy, wherever it is in the state, please look at it carefully, because there's a literacy problem in all of Louisiana. We need to address it, otherwise we don't have the workforce coming up, an educated workforce. So literacy always needs to be looked at real carefully by the session, the legislators they go forward.
Where does Louisiana rank compared to other states in early childhood education and some of these other services?
Early childhood education is actually an area where we've made a lot of great strides in Louisiana. Unfortunately, we had COVID-19, and that decimated the early childhood, early care and education sector here in the state. So right now, we're using federal recovery funds just to stop the bleeding. What we're asking legislators to do now is to add another $86 million to really stabilize the system and make early care and education affordable, accessible, and high quality for all Louisiana families.
What would you like people to keep in mind about the importance of Louisiana's children on Louisiana's Children's Day at the legislature?
Well, like I said, we're asking folks to be a force for children. So anytime that they're looking at policy or funding, we're asking them to think about what they can do to help the children in our state.
How can people get more information?
They can visit us at louisianapartnership.org.